Bring the lights down low, it's time to show. Lights, camera, you know what we mean. Behold the magic of the silver screen. Some movies rock, some movies shock. They're powerful, alright. We cover them all on your favorite part. So many movies we can choose. Even when you win, you lose. Life moves pretty fast. Some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math. It's the 30-something movie podcast. Be excellent to each other. Peace out and word to your mother. They're from the best decades. Movie magic that never fades. Lightsabers clash, phasers set to stun. Action packed from dusk till dawn. We have deep thoughts and questions three. Who share our love of the movies we see. Life moves pretty fast. Some will fizzle and some movies last. I understood there would be no math. It's the 30-something movie podcast.
It is our very, very special episode, and next week on a special episode of Saved by the Bell, greatest movie explosions of all time. We're blowing up Screech, guys.
Boom.
It's one of those very, very special episodes where Steve Urkel turns into Stefan.
Ah,
We're going to talk about the greatest. Yeah, boom, shake, shake, shake the room. I could keep singing, but tick,
Please
tick,
don't.
tick, tick, boom. No, okay, all right.
it's a little better, but
Okay.
still,
All
please don't.
I could do my interpretive version of it, my William Shatner version. This is greatest movie explosions of all time. We have several different categories. Pat, so before we started recording, Pat, let me ask this question. Were you, and totally fine if you were you criticizing the categories, or were you just like, the categories were interesting, John?
Oh no, I
okay.
love the categories.
Oh, okay.
I was calling you out because
multiple answers.
because of the multiple answers.
Okay,
because
yeah,
last week it came up. No. I love.
Oh, okay.
I love the I'm sorry that came. I'm sorry that you even gave a.
No. Because we can. Hey, I'm all about
second
blowing.
thought.
I'm all about blowing stuff up this episode. So if you want to blow up a category, I'm fine with that too.
No, I love the categories, and it was super thought provoking and really made me delve into the Google. What were the greatest explosions in movie history? / what is just my gut reaction? Like, what are my feelings?
You just thought that after I picked on Jeff for adding cells in the spreadsheet that I was doing
right.
the same thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because we have to go back and listen, but I believe it was, okay, John, you put one cell in each category. Is this going to be like the famous? And you were like, no, we are not adding cells. This is the categories. You got to pick one. And then I logged on today and everyone had like 3 or 4 on there. And I was kind of like, okay, so, but as you mentioned in the lead up to the show, that is because there are honorable mentions.
Correct.
So
there will be one explosion only per category.
No, and I just, and whenever we do the category shows, I love that it, like the category, it makes you work for it a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, and the funniest one was like, I think we do the greatest motorcycles of all time.
Yeah.
And I had a list of like 642,952. And then it was like, oh, but the way
your answers were multiplying like Smiths in Matrix Reloaded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So no, I have no criticisms of the of the categories themselves.
I am not. I am only married to my lovely wife. I am not married to any of these categories. So if the categories if we need to cut the wrong wire and one of these categories need to go, you gentlemen just let me know. Because
in fact, I have to be honest. I think I bent about 4 of the categories like to the limits of what they were saying anyways. So I think we're all good.
I'm fine with that. Go for it.
Yeah. But no, not at all. And I apologize if it sounded snarky or if I was
not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
All right. So we do have some categories for this one. We try to break it down now. We're going to break it down now into several categories. The categories, and I'll give a little bit of an explanation here, but if you've listened to us for any amount of time, as Pat was saying, sometimes we like to stretch our interpretation of some things a bit. So we're not going to we're not going to tear each other apart if we've stretched our definitions just slightly, but here are the categories. Category 1, the biggest booms, the explosions with the largest and most dramatic fireballs. Category number 2, emotional impact, explosions that carry significant emotional weight in the story. Unexpected explosions, moments where explosions catch the audience by surprise. Heroic sacrifices, explosions where a character sacrifices themselves to save others. Quirky combustions, unusual or humorous explosions. Classic moments, timeless explosions that have become part of movie history. Silent but deadly, explosions that occur in space or other environments where sound is muted or there's a unique sound effect that accompanies that explosion. And the slow-mo blow is the best example of an explosion where someone is walking, running, leaping away from the blast in slow motion. So, and with that one, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about it. I'll play a little bit of it when we get to that point, maybe, if I've got the sound file for it. Are you guys aware of the Lonely Island song that was written about this particular concept?
I can't say that I am.
Oh,
They wrote a song, and I'm trying to remember what the occasion was for the song, but the song is called Cool Guys Don't Look at Explosions.
Okay.
And the idea being that whenever you have your action hero and something explodes, they're always walking away from it, and they don't ever look at the explosion.
interesting.
Right? The cool guys don't look at explosions. Cool guys let it explode behind them, and they just keep walking without looking back.
I can understand that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll play you a little bit of the song when we get to that. I'm trying to remember exactly why. I feel like it was some award show that they were doing. I don't know if it was the oh no, here it is. It was created for the 2009 MTV Movie Awards by Andy Samberg. So I'll play you a little bit of that when we get to that point. But, all right, gentlemen, are your souls prepared for this one?
My soul is
Mhm.
prepared.
Okay, we've got
Yes.
our wire cutters are thrown out. We're not cutting any of the wires, whether they're red, green, gold, white.
Have we
doesn't matter.
established why we're doing a special? Is this a certain anniversary, or is this just hey, time to go boom?
It's just hey, time to go boom.
I'm glad I didn't. I'm glad I'm like,
Yeah.
my God, did I miss it? Like, did I miss something? But no, this is just fun.
No,
This is great.
if you want to consider episode 531 to be an epiversary, then sure.
Let's do it.
Let's make that the big deal. Hey, everybody, it's the 531st episode. Woo!
Woo! Cubs. Woo!
There you go.
Oh,
Yeah. It's this month, June, is our movies that deal with, so here's a little bit of backstory. June is our theme for June is Udabom. So they have been all of our movies like Speed, Blown Away was last week, True Lies will be next week. The reason that this exists is because John often John's going to talk about himself as if he's in the third person. Bob Dole, John is often trying to make sure that he can match things up in his little spreadsheet when he comes up with the different themes for the different months. And as John was doing that, John may have made a slight error in terms of listing a couple of movies twice.
oh,
I mean, as we know.
It was my understanding that there would be no math.
Indeed.
So John has trouble with that sometimes. John accidentally listed The Specialist in both February, which was our Rwenge month, and also Udabom month. So given that The Specialist was not my favorite movie in the world, I was like, let's not do that twice.
right.
So let's do something different. So then I realized, even just, maybe like a month or two ago, I was like, oh, we have an empty space in June. What could we do? Us gentlemen who have certain movie, what shall I call them, enthusiasms, I thought, what could we do? We could do explosions, because it's Udabom month. So let's do a special episode on the greatest movie explosions of all time, because I was thinking about the motorcycle one, Pat.
Okay.
Mm.
So I was like, what can we do that's kind of like that? Ooh, look, it fits perfectly in June. We like movies where things go boom, boom. So that's what we're doing. That's the backstory.
There it is.
Yeah. All right. So, as I said, those are our categories. This is our episode this time around. We'll go through each category, and Dennis was not going to be able to join us tonight. He did, in our document where we were keeping track of our different choices, he did drop some in there, so I will read his out loud. He was in on the biggest booms. I don't think there were any in any of the other categories, but he did drop some in there. So I will read his out loud, and I know he was looking forward to listening to this since he wasn't going to be able to make it to record with us tonight.
Yeah.
So
well, good as his thoughts represented.
yeah. All right, let's go ahead and we'll get started with biggest booms. So these are the explosions with the largest and most dramatic fireballs. Bo, Love Fest. Let's start with you.
All righty. This one was fun because you could go a lot of different ways with it, but I went with Die Hard, the original Die Hard.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the one where John McClane drops some of the explosives down the elevator shaft and blows out some of the windows in the Nakatomi building.
Yes.
When I was thinking about this category, I listed a few others in our document here, but I went with this one because I've always enjoyed the fireball rocketing through an elevator shaft or a tunnel or something that condenses that fireball.
Yeah.
It seems to always make it more explosive to me.
Nice.
So, Die Hard elevator shaft.
Excellent. All right. Dennis had included in here. He listed 3 of them. I'm gonna list 2 of his 3 because I think his third one is actually one of mine too. So I'm gonna wait and say that when it gets to mine. But I'll list a couple of his. The ending of Jaws, blowing up Bruce, and then he also mentioned the Crow, the pawn shop scene.
Mm-hmm.
So those were a couple of Dennis's picks. Which, by the way, I'm gonna say I apparently made a mistake and did not buy the Crow 4K disc that was going to come out. There was going to be like a steel case edition that was coming out on Amazon. I apparently made the mistake of not pre-ordering it 2 months ago because it sold out before it even came out.
I see.
And now you cannot get it for less than like $80.
Wow.
So that was John made a mistake, but that's okay. I don't need the steel case. I'm fine. We're all fine here now.
Are you? Yeah. You sound a little broken up about this one.
I'm fine. It can't rain all the time, Bo.
That is true.
Yeah. All right, so mine, and yes, I will fully admit I was guilty of putting multiple entries in here and then struggling as I went back and forth between a couple of different ones. But the category was biggest booms, explosions with the largest and most dramatic fireballs. So with that, of the ones that I listed,
fireball.
I just need to take a whole bunch of sugar. I am Cornelio. I went and picked Independence Day, which was also one of Dennis's picks in here too. I went with that one. While a lot of these that I listed, and I'll give the rest of them as runners up, but a lot of the ones I listed are favorites. And I was like, that's a massive explosion. I love that explosion. But then I kept thinking, Independence Day. Okay, some of the other ones I've picked, really cool explosions, big explosions. But when you see those scenes in Independence Day where they blow up the skyscrapers and they blow up the White House and that, not only do they have that explosion, but then the shockwave, the praxis effect, if you will, then goes through the rest of the city and just starts blowing other stuff up in the city too. So even though I'll tell you one of my runners up right now was Terminator 2. The nuclear Holocaust scene in Terminator 2, the Judgment Day
that
scene.
Came up in my whittling down of titles. That definitely came up. But you know what did it for me? Well, let me hear why it didn't make yours, and then I'll see if we agreed.
Only because it was like all we see in that one is the one city get blown up. And it's kind of from a little bit further away, and it's very dramatic and everything else. But I think given what you actually get to see kind of close up, I think some of the visual effects that they were able to do in Independence Day was even just a little bit beyond some of those visual effects with the nuclear explosion in T2. So the Independence Day, even though you end up seeing all the people turn into little skeletons and then get completely blown away, and then Sarah Connor holding onto the fence, and then she gets blown away, even though you do see all that, and that's really dramatic, I just kept thinking Independence Day is you get to see what you're seeing there is Los Angeles getting blown up. But what you get to see in Independence Day is you get to see multiple locations get blown up, and in much the same way as what's happening in T2. So while I love that scene in T2 with the nuclear explosion, I kind of had to go with, it seemed like the bigger explosion was the Independence Day explosions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's the reason I picked that one, only because it seemed a bigger explosion, not because I necessarily like the explosions better. There is one that I like much better as an explosion, more so than Independence Day and more so than T2, but that was, I went with the literal interpretation of the category and was like, what is the biggest explosion.
Super cool.
I also didn't feel like the T2 one really gave us a fireball.
Not really. I mean, you get the mushroom cloud a bit, but
it was the mushroom cloud, and I even went to watch it because in my head it was just a white flash of light.
Yeah.
And I needed to go back and watch it because I was curious about the fireball, and there was a mushroom cloud.
Yeah.
But it just didn't rise to that fireball level for me when I was comparing it to, say, the fireball going up through that elevator shaft.
Yeah. All right, Patrick.
Up your shaft.
I want to say that there was some cool practical effects that were going on with Independence Day as well.
Yes.
I mean, it was a lot of it's only a model, but I know that they talked about like in a lot of those scenes, they had to like build a model and then blow it up, and so, when you look back on that, now that would probably all, well, I don't want to say probably, but in all likelihood that would be CGI and done quite well. But the idea of having to do a real thing is always pretty inspiring too.
Pat, I want to say something. You talk about inspiring. It's inspiring to me that you just used that quote from Holy Grail just now, because, and I think you'll appreciate this, there have been times throughout the years, not even just now that I work at the district office of our district, but there have been times throughout the years where sometimes we get into meetings and people are kind of...
Oh, I know.
Yeah. And people are kind of... There's like a sense of overly congratulating each other on something.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of get those like...
A little too much patting ourselves on the back, maybe?
A little like, somebody needs to watch that pat, because we might need not pat as in the person, but like the pat on the back, like that could be an HR violation if we're not careful. Like we got to calm down with the patting on the back here.
Mm-hmm.
That phrase I use all the time when people are in meetings and they're like, "Oh my, this is so amazing. This is so awesome. I just sit there and under my breath, I just go, "It's only a model."
It's only a model.
Yeah. So mentally I use that movie quote pretty much all the time.
I kind of, that's a good one. I also think in those situations, I go to Pulp Fiction when the wolf is working, and they're all like, okay, well, we got this. Let's not go each other too soon, gentlemen. Yeah, I think that's a good one too.
Yep.
Let's not go patting each other on the back too soon, gentlemen.
Yeah. There's a phrase we may reuse because it's more family friendly.
And then it's also like, okay, well, what are we patting ourselves on the back? Isn't this our job to do this?
Right.
Like, isn't our job so are you, when you go to the restaurant and the person gets your order right, are you jumping up and down and high-fiving them? You're just saying, hey, no, thank you very much. So maybe we have to shoot a little bit higher. We did our jobs.
Yeah.
High five. Okay. Like,
hey, congratulations for the bare minimum, guys. Which I feel like maybe that's, that actually should be the tagline for our podcast. 30-something movie podcast. Congratulations for the bare minimum.
Agreed.
I just know who your meetings involve. It's just making me laugh. So I just got to be careful.
Yeah. Patrick, what is the biggest
small
boom
victories
for you?
So I ruminated on all these questions for a time, and I switched things around.
They have medications for that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I am going to go with Backdraft. Backdraft captured my imagination when it first came out. I couldn't see it because that was right when the R-rated movie thing was starting to become tolerated for me in my house.
Mm-hmm.
It was, strangely enough, not one of the ones that was like and I'm trying to think, it wasn't one of the ones that like I watched at a buddy's house. For some reason, those movies always tended to be like Aliens, Lethal Weapons, Die Hards, and so forth. My folks went and saw it, and they had a lot of opinions on it. They liked it. My grandparents saw it, and so I was getting the feedback from all the adult family figures, and it was like, wow, yeah, but you can't see it. And it was like, oh, but they talked enough about it.
This movie is amazing, but you're never.
This is the greatest thing I've ever seen. You can't know.
And then enough friends saw it that filled in the gaps. Like I knew everything that was going to happen, but I had built it up in my head. Right. I built it up in my head of, I bet you it looks like this. I bet you it looks like this. And, at that point in my life, it was like, you kind of knew, okay, firefighters, my God, they run into like they're heroes. They run into a burning building and they, put their lives on the line to save others. And I already had that, but to see that and hear what situations were being presented in the movie and the fact that it was Chicago, it really, like I said, captured the imagination. I finally saw it, and I don't know if I was like babysitting some kids and family friends, and they had the movie, so I'm like, I'm going to pop this in and watch it. or if I only saw part of it, or whenever. But it was like, oh my gosh, beyond my wildest dreams, I couldn't imagine this being depicted. And now, whether that was Hollywood making it pretty dramatic or not, it just really captured my attention. And it was one of those that I couldn't look away. Like I remember watching scenes over and over, and every single fire and the final half hour of that movie, when, spoilers for Backdraft, but I mean, the final, when like the roof is collapsing and they have to jump, and then the one pipe has gas and he has to jump and grab the pipe, but now he's in a shaft of filling up with water. And I'm like, can these things even happen? And then, like, and then the fire, like when it comes through the doorway and knocks the guy back, and then they talk about the backdraft fires. And I don't want to make fun of it, but it almost gets to the level of the fire sneaks out underneath and it comes back, then it's surging at the door. And it was like, then it's exploding, and then it's going down the hall, taking a left, going in the door and hiding behind. It's like, it just, all those different scenes really just fascinated me in a well, I guess in a twisted way, in a way it horrified me as well. Like it was just very dramatic. So seeing all those explosions, and like I said, the final half hour of the movie where everything's going up and you're in the factory and this is going that way, and it was so incredibly well done movie. I mean, it's Ron Howard, so you're getting like top shelf quality, incredible movie. Great acting, great characters, just so much to talk about with that movie. So go back and listen to our episode. Yeah. But I would say that one was the biggest in my mind, just the fireballs and the way they treated the whole concept of fire and built a movie around it. That was in my mind. That was the biggest thing. So
yeah. Well, it's amazing because it's a living thing, Pat. To beat it, you have to think like it.
Sure, it has to go with gases and flow and all that, but it moves that way, Brian, because it wants to move that way.
It wants to.
Oh, man.
If anybody's interested, it is episode 337. So if you head over to 30podcast.com and go to episode 337, it's a living thing. And that is not the ELO song. That is Backdraft. So
you were ordered to do nothing, right? By your senior commander on the scene, me, and everybody else said do nothing. But you couldn't do nothing, right? Because what happens? That little light, the hero complex. Oh, heroes don't stand still. So you ventilated. What did he say? You knocked out a window for ventilation. Did you do that before or after? You knew you were standing in a lake of gasoline, you moron. That whole scene where oh my gosh. Robert De Niro, man. Oh,
Bobby D.
Jeez Louise, that's a great movie. I know. No, I got to go watch that movie tonight.
Yeah. Do we have runners up for biggest booms?
Yeah, I had a couple.
What you got?
Fire it up. Fire it up.
Worth mentioning the tanker in Waterworld.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot going on there.
Yeah.
Another boat, another Die Hard, the boat from Die Hard 3. That's actually going to come up as an honorable mention, I believe, again later in our discussion for other reasons. But I thought that was a pretty good explosion. The end of The Rock.
Mm-hmm.
When they call in the airstrike on Alcatraz.
Yeah.
And then the other one I have as an honorable mention here, I'm going to hold because it's going to come up later, actually, now that I look at it. I forgot to mention the opening of Another Stakeout. That it's a crazy scene because you got people diving into pools and the fireballs keep popping up behind them. And it's an interesting way to open a movie.
Yeah. My runners up, I already mentioned Judgment Day from T2. That's one of my other runners up for largest and most dramatic fireballs. The other one, I put it in here because it didn't really fit in any other categories for me. It wasn't going to be my top one for any of the other categories, and I don't know that it really fit as an honorable mention for any other categories. So it's not like the biggest explosion, but I just remember as a kid and even watching it the last time I've watched it, I'm like, man, this is an awesome scene. It is the scene where Batman blows up Axis Chemicals in Batman 89. Like that is a fun, and then the Batmobile, he puts up the shields and they drop the little bombs and then everything starts exploding. He goes racing out and the whole thing is just this massive fireball. So that's definitely a runner-up for me. I had another one that was also a runner-up, but I actually moved it to another category, so I'll mention that one. But yeah, my runner-up I would say would be the Axis Chemicals explosion.
And what a great chance to talk about the Danny Elfman score with that.
I was just going to say that theme as he's driving out and
that Batmobile just looks fantastic. And I mean, which I
Haven't we done a favorite Batmobile conversation on the pod? If
I
not,
think
we
so.
should.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
if I haven't said it before, that's my favorite Batmobile.
I think
Well,
that
and
wins for a lot of us.
Yeah.
and again, you know, we've gone from some days you just can't get rid of a bomb, and that was fun. But then you see the 1989 Batman, and wow, and when that Batmobile which drove out of like your wildest dream. The one that John is holding up right now.
There we go.
That thing comes driving out on screen, and you're like,
Yep.
this is just, and you see that it's these gorgeous shots of it driving out. You know, Batman doesn't use guns, but he's got the twin 50 calibers that pop up. He's got the bombs. He's just
Hey, guns don't kill people. The
Yeah.
Batmobile kills people.
Indeed.
okay. So moving right along.
There you go.
Footloose and fancy free.
There you go. Next category is emotional impact. So these are explosions that carry significant emotional weight in their story. So we'll go in reverse order for this one. So Pat, what did you have for this one?
Well, I went with a slightly different emotion than I think possibly other people did, and I'm going to give a little daily double for Bo's biggest boom. I'm going to say the jump off the roof of Nakatomi Tower, with the fire hose tied around him. The John McClane jump off the roof,
Yeah.
and that. Yeah, go back and listen to our Die Hard episode. For so many reasons, that just is exactly what the ethos of the 80s is all about in that movie. I love that movie. I watch it every Christmas. It's fantastic. And when you get to that scene, and you know what, Bo, I almost put the elevator when he's got the C4 and he puts how many of the little, what is it, the little arming things that you put in the C4?
The blasting caps?
The blasting caps, yeah. And he wraps the computer around the top, and he's just like, he puts like one, and he's just like, forget it. You know, he puts like 2, 3, 4, and then launches the thing down.
And then the fireball comes back at him. He's like,
Oh, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned it, because I'm going to just mention the roof jump. I mean, it's just the movie keeps getting more and more action and more over the top until quite literally he goes over the top and jumps off the roof that's exploding while he jumps off the roof, tied to a fire hose. I just, wow. Awesome.
Indeed.
Awesome.
You said you watch it every Christmas. Have you ever done the thing where you put it on New Year's Eve and then Hans Gruber falls as soon as it strikes midnight?
Oh,
You ever
no,
done that
I
one?
think I
Okay.
got a new thing now.
I've heard of people doing that with they start Star Wars long enough before midnight so that the Death Star explodes right at midnight. And then I've heard some people do the Die Hard one where Hans Gruber takes his final tumble as soon as it strikes midnight.
Right.
The follow-up question is, would you be able to stay up that late, Pat?
Yeah, no.
Okay. Pat gets to the scene.
Pat has a
gets his-
bedtime, and that's the thing.
Yeah, Pat times it so that they enter the parking garage just as it turns about 9 p.m.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is.
And then Pat's asleep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so mine, this was another tough one because I had several, but the one that I'm like, nope, this one I remember as a kid, as an adult, doesn't matter how many times I've seen this one, the emotional impact for you as the movie watcher and the character in the scene has got to be when Indy thinks that the truck that Marion is in explodes.
Yeah.
When Raiders, when he's chasing after and he thinks he's catching up with her and the truck drives away and then it explodes and he is completely convinced that she is dead. And you've got just his reaction at the end of that scene and then the follow-up where he's getting drunk in the bar and he's completely like decimated and just the emotional impact. Because I was trying to think, there's several other movies where you have an explosion. It's got emotional impact. And I've got a couple as runners up that I'll mention here in just a little bit, but that one in particular, I'm like, I remember as a kid, even when I had seen it 10 times as a kid, I like that scene. It still gets to you because he is completely, and you forget for a second. Every time I'd watch that, I'd even forget for a couple of seconds. I'm like, man, they just blew her up. Wait a minute. I've seen this movie a dozen times. They didn't blow her up. Never mind.
Just kidding.
Just kidding. But yeah, that's the emotional impact one for me. Bo, what have you got?
So I went with the Hurt Locker.
Mm.
Not enough time to defuse that bomb vest.
Okay. I have
It
not
just-
seen. This will
it
be a bit of a
sets
spoiler
a-
for me. I have not seen The Hurt Locker,
Oh,
but that's okay. I will watch it at some point.
it sets a tone, and you know, it's funny. I can't remember how early in the movie that is, but I feel like it sets a tone pretty early.
Yeah.
And that the bomb techs are trying to defuse this bomb
Mhm.
on a guy, and they just can't.
Yeah.
And they all start running away, and then he just goes off, and it sets a tone for the rest of that movie. And I feel like, yeah, it's just, it hits you.
Yeah.
I believe the guy who's going to blow up says a final prayer. I mean, it is just gut wrenching.
Yeah.
And
No.
go ahead,
No,
John.
go ahead.
Well, and a good time, especially as we're recording this on Memorial Day, to just
Yes.
remember
Indeed.
all our armed service personnel that, you know, give the give the ultimate sacrifice
Yeah.
for us, so that we get to sit here and talk about movies and all that. So I think, I don't want to speak for everybody, but I've seen you guys nod.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think especially that when you,
If any are listening, thank you.
yeah, thank you. And to all those that have given their lives, because it's just unthinkable to think of having to face that.
Right.
You know,
What about runners up for this category? What else did you have?
I had from Armageddon, the Bruce Willis's character Stamper pushes that button after he says goodbye to his daughter, and
Yep.
that one will come up again later in another category, but it fit here very well as well.
Yeah, that's a tough one too. I love you, Harry. Don't go. My runners up for this one were, I had a couple, and I moved this one. There was one that was I had it under Biggest Boom, and I moved it down to this one because every time I watch it is just, the first time I saw it was just amazing. And then every other time after that, I like it. I don't know. It makes me want to like get up and go lead a revolt. What I originally had under Biggest Booms was the V for Vendetta, the end, when they blow up Parliament in Big Ben. And the first time I saw that, I think I went to go see it. I actually saw it in IMAX. So if you're going to see an explosion in IMAX, the end of V for Vendetta is definitely worth seeing in IMAX. If you ever
I can
have
see
the
that.
opportunity. It was to see Parliament explode and Big Ben explode, and just the have the 1812 overture playing during the whole thing. Like that was an experience. The other one, and I remember having watched this one as a kid too, and just especially the first time I saw it, it came out of left field. Like I didn't expect him to die, but the whole scene where they are infiltrating in T2, they're infiltrating Cyberdyne, and then Miles Dyson gets shot, and he's the one that's sitting there holding the detonator, holding the dead man switch, and then he's sitting there holding it, and you just kind of see him give like his final breaths, and as he's sitting there and just his final breaths, then all of a sudden he passes and he lets go, and boom, you have the big explosion. And I even remember as a kid thinking, at least the people at this point in the movie are probably going to get out alive, right? Like we've got the kid, we've got John Connor, we've got Sarah Connor, we've got T2, we've got the Terminator, we've got Miles Dyson. Like we're gonna save everything, we're gonna be okay. And then the shock of him getting shot and realizing I'm not getting out of this alive. I'm done for. I just got to do what I can to buy them some time. So that one too, I threw that one as a runner up for emotional impact. All right. Our next category is unexpected explosions. Moments where the explosions catch the audience by a bit of a surprise. Bo, what did you have for this one?
I had the cafe scene in Inception when you aren't even sure you see this and everyone's so nonchalant. That's when you first accept that you're in a dream sequence. And so that was my unexpected explosion.
And a fun explosion because there's no fire.
Right.
Like everything's just exploding, but it's not like fire exploding. Fire. There's no fire. It's just things are just spreading out from where they are. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the technical definition of an explosion, I believe.
Yeah. Right. Usually you expect a little fire, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, because usually there's some sort of fuel involved, but when you're in a dream hellscape, who knows?
Sure, absolutely. Mine for this one, for the unexpected explosions, I kind of went back and forth on this one a little bit. I will say the first time, it was unexpected the first time I watched this movie, and so I think that's why I put it in the unexpected explosions, and it's my favorite out of some of the unexpected explosions. But when the bombs start taking out all the buildings at the end of Fight Club,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of Fight Club, where you've had, if we want to call him narrator or Jack or whatever you want to call him, you've had him going up against Tyler Durden, and you don't know quite what's going on. I mean, at that point in the movie, spoiler alert, at that point in the movie, that they are the same person, and he's a figment of his imagination, but you don't quite realize, you kind of are starting to understand that once he kind of shoots himself in the mouth, that they have now blended personalities. They are one person, and they are kind of a combined Jack and Tyler. And then all of a sudden there's that line, and I remember, I mean, that to me was just an amazing ending to that movie. And that may have been one of the things that triggered me to immediately hit the rewind button as soon as that movie ended and go back and watch it again, was when, what is it? Helena Bonham Carter. What is her character's name? Marla.
Mm.
When Marla is there, she shows up, and he just turns and he goes, and he looks at her, and things start to explode just as he says, "Marla, you've met me at a very strange time in my life." And then all of a sudden, all of the big skyscraper type, I think it's all the financial buildings in the city,
Mm-hmm.
immediately start exploding outside, and the Pixies song "Where Is My Mind" starts playing, and I'm like, that's awesome. That's how you end a movie.
Right.
Met me at a very strange time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick, what was your unexpected explosion? Caught you by surprise.
Well, which is, I think, one of the better, if not the best, depictions of the attack on Pearl Harbor for any number of reasons. But in it, there's a sequence where a P-40 either is coming in for a landing, or there's something that's crashing or something, where there was supposed to be like an explosion where a P-40, I think it's one of the planes that was trying to get up on that day, and then it comes in and crashes or whatnot. The bottom line is, the short of it is, in reality, they lost control of the plane. And I think they were towing it or something. They lost control of the plane. It went and crashed into a row of parked P-40s, and then erupted into an explosion with 30, 40-foot fireball going. And my understanding is that nobody lost their life. And so I want to make sure, if I got that wrong, dear Lord, I don't want to be listening to this as, hey, this is awesome. But I mean, my understanding is that everyone survived. But in that scene, it's terrifying because you see people scrambling for their lives. And when you first watch it, it's like you see people going, and it's like, man, those extras really, they committed to that. That's wow. And then it was later, and to be honest, it might, and I'm going to talk about these guys a couple times here, but it might have been the guys in the Friendly Fire podcast pointed it out, that was actually a mistake, and that fireball was real. And those extras looked like they were scrambling for their lives, because they were literally scrambling for their lives. What was that? Yeah. And you can pull it up on the YouTube, and you just Google Tor real explosion or whatever, and it'll come up. And when you watch it, it doesn't look like, even movies of that generation, when there's like stuntmen or extras running, it just looks more controlled. When you watch this, it's terrifying, and it looks it when those people. So that surprise, I would say the surprise would be for everybody on set that day, and it's just surprising when you look at that and just see, people running in terror, and they kept the scene in there, and it is sure effective. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Any runners up for this category? What did you have under unexpected explosions?
Sort of in the recency bias category, but speed. The bus, they get off the bus, and you sort of think, okay, the bus is just going to roll its way off into the distance, maybe stop in a grassy area, maybe explode all by itself. But oh no. They hit a plane first.
Mm-hmm.
Ba-boom.
Mm-hmm.
So not so much an unexpected explosion, but an unexpected double explosion.
And a lot of people, it was a mail plane. It was a courier plane too, wasn't it?
Yeah,
A lot of people not getting their packages.
did not get their packages.
Mm-mm.
It was bad.
Nope. Crashed into a mail plane. You know how you could tell it was a mail plane?
Oh no.
I'm
Oh
sorry.
boy.
Our Three Amigos episode
We
was
are the
episode
three
50.
Oh, amigos.
Because a little.
Oh boy.
Just a little. Anyway.
As I recall, Siskel and Ebert didn't like that one either.
You know, one of them
Just saying.
one of them's dead now. So
Okay, all right now. All right. Jeez.
that's why you don't badmouth good movies.
Mm-hmm.
Comes back to bite you. So, Bo, you had a cafe scene for one of your unexpected ones. I'm going to say the cafe or coffee shop explosion in Children of Men. You guys seen that movie?
Long time ago.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah. So, Children of Men basically is a movie. I think it's supposed to be like 20 to 25 years after a global pandemic, and people are no longer having children. And so the whole world has kind of fallen into this depression because whatever generation we're in now, that's it. Like there's not going to be human life after this. And so the very beginning of the movie, in fact, I think it's one of the very first scenes in the opening of the movie. Is it Clive Owen? I think it's Clive Owen is the character. Yeah, is the actor. You see all these people, they're watching this news report on TV, and he goes into this coffee shop and buys a coffee, and he's walking out, and it's just kind of, you're seeing him walk through the streets of, I think it's London, and everything just looks gray and kind of bleak, and he's got his cup of coffee, and the camera kind of pans around, and while he stops to pour a little bit of something from a flask into his coffee, and about, I want to say less than a couple of seconds right after that, the coffee shop he had just come out of immediately explodes. And it is shocking. Like you do not expect that to happen at all. And I remember seeing this in the movie theater and just like jumping in my seat because I was not expecting that to happen. So that one definitely. I want to go back for just a half second, and I'm just going to mention the name of a movie that I should have also had in my runners up for the biggest booms. I'm just going to say Rogue One.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, an entire planet.
Right. You know, like when you got Jeddah, but you got especially at the end when they're sacrificing themselves because they know they can't get out and they've got the explosion with the shockwave coming after them. I got to throw that one in there because I don't know why I missed that one. All right. Heroic sacrifices. These are explosions where a character sacrifices themselves to save others. Patrick, what have you got for the heroic sacrifice explosion?
Well, this is again where I may be bending it. I am choosing the USS Enterprise.
It is a character.
And it is a character. I mean, it is a character. There's a computer.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. Seek out new life. Well, there it sits, John.
Yeah. Don't piss off our AI overlords. Nope. I mean,
that's right. No, I'm going to say heroic sacrifice. And it was, again, a case of a movie captivating my imagination. And this was my entry point to Star Wars was the original series, watching the syndication, watching them with my grandma, watching them whenever I get on TV. And then the movies were out right as I'm trying to think. Search for Spock was what, 82?
Search for Spock was 84, 85 maybe? 84.
Okay.
I think. 84.
84. So I mean, that would have put me at like 6. So a little bit young for really grasping the movies, but I was watching Star Trek, the show by then. So I saw it later on WGN, and it was one of those that, oh, okay. And it's like, oh, they did movies? Okay, well, what was the plot of the movies? And again, my dad had seen them, so he kind of told me as I was growing up, okay, well, first, when he told me about Wrath of Khan, and there was one of the bad guys came back, and it was when I knew Star Trek as the show, but when he was describing what was going on in the movie, it was like, oh man, you mean they go in a different direction, you know? And I think that was common with a lot of times when you bring a show to a movie, you make it more intense. You up the stakes. You do something to change it. I mean, I think of Transformers the cartoon, Transformers the movie, right? Like suddenly Transformers are really getting injured and all this kind of thing. And so
we don't talk about
when you start to, what was that?
We don't talk about that.
Yeah, I know. We
don't talk about Transformers.
And so when my dad, it was funny because he described Wrath of Khan and then he described Search for Spock. And they're like, well, Kirk steals the Enterprise. And I'm just like, he does what? And it was like, as a kid, I'm like, well, it's his ship. I mean, how does he? And he's like, no, you don't understand. He gets so suddenly I'm starting to become aware of all these other plot points. And then my dad was describing what had happened to Spock, and it was like, well, wait a minute, you mean they kill up? Like what? And it was blowing my mind. And then I caught it on WGN, and I watched it, and it was the same thing as with Backdraft. In my brain, I had set it up a certain way, and when I finally saw it, that imprinted on me. Like when I think of the Enterprise, I think of that 80s movie look. When I think of this, I think of all those things. Anywho, to come to the point, when they get to that scene where Kirk has to blow up the Enterprise, it's like, wait a minute, wow, okay, this took a turn. And I think even that's kind of a turning point in because, spoiler, I mean, we spoil it freely. I'm talking about Search for Spock, but I mean, David has already been killed. The planet that they were on that looked like a paradise, suddenly it's destroying itself. So when they end up on the planet, it almost kind of resembles more like hell, right? So I mean, it's like a definite turn in the movie. Up to that point, the movie was kind of fun, adventure, and they got away with something. When just the more they overthink the plumbing, the easier it is to stop up the drain, and all that good nature. They got the one-ups, and then this is where this movie really becomes super serious. And yeah, when they blow up the ship, and they really, I mean, you're saying goodbye to a major character. And it's just the incredible James Horner score when they sit down, just the whole way they've got to activate it. They got to give their codes A, 1A, 2A, 2B when it's confirmed, and all this kind of stuff. And then they've got the countdown. And when they get the Klingons in, and all of a sudden Chris Lloyd, the Commander Crude, is yelling, "Get out!" You just
Get out
music,
there.
yeah. And then and they do this actually in Wrath of Khan with the James Horner score too. In Wrath of Khan, when he's like, clear the bridge, when Khan attacks and he's got to like pull out all the stops to outthink him, they start the music right away, and suddenly it's like the music is building towards something. Same thing happens here. The ship is dead in the figurative water. The ship is dead in the water, dead in space. What are they going to do? And he just gives the first line for the destruct sequence, and they put that music on, but the music tells you, yeah, this isn't going to be kind of the happy we got out of it ending. This is not going to be good. And then you think, man, the ship that was their home for years and years and years and years and years, it's survived so much with them. It's done all the, and I don't think, in Next Gen, you get the ones where they blow up the ship, but it's a time loop. So you see it and you got to, and all this, but
At least
you don't really have
times.
that. Yeah. But you don't see that. You don't see that in the original series. Right.
Right.
So this is shocking. And just like I said, the images when that ship is going and then pirouetting out of control, and it's really, she's in her death throes, and it's just painful. It's just sad. And so I'm going to keep talking, so put me on mute, but I have to say The Search for Spock, because that is just a really dramatic scene, and I think brings a tear to the eye of any good Trekkie. So
Pat, it's Trekkies
There you
Like You is the reason why when they did that time loop episode, was it Cause and Effect? Was that the name of that one?
I think so.
I think it was, yeah. The reason Trekkies Like You are the reason why there was no other way to end that episode. They had to end that episode with Captain Fraser Crane being on that ship, ready to talk you through whatever you're going through as you watch the Enterprise get. Hello, Starfleet. I'm listening.
Oh God!
I know you gentlemen. I don't know that you gentlemen have not completed, and Pat, you might not have even started yet, the Greatest Generation run through Voyager.
No, I haven't.
Okay.
No,
right.
I started Voyager. I'm working my way through Voyager.
Okay. All right.
I'm working my yes.
One of the running gags that they constantly do is the number of times Janeway is ready and willing to just blow up the ship.
Yes.
Like they have a running bit that they continue to do. It's like this, how many times this season has Janeway just been almost excited by the idea of blowing up the ship? And I think I want to say it's a bit they ultimately end up calling ASMR Janeway, because she's like, all right, here's what we're going to do. We're gonna blow up the ship. Okay, we're gonna enter the code to blow up the ship. I swear I'm gonna blow up the ship. I'm gonna blow up the ship. because of the number of times she is absolutely, she's like, oh, I can't let them get their hands on Federation technology. I'll blow up this ship. That becomes like a running gag throughout their entire run of Voyager.
Yeah.
Is how ready and
Blow
willing
up
and
the
able she is.
ship, Picard. No.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, you broke your little ships.
Yeah. Yeah. It was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it. Yeah. And I'm just saying, like, there are no escape pods. Like, we are only going forward. When he does that, that's like the nuclear option. You know, it's. Boy, can't wait for that in the theaters, guys. I can't wait for our field trip to go see that movie.
I know we have to.
It's.
I'm gonna really try not to make any while I'm in the theater. I'm gonna just keep myself quiet and not make my little like jokes that I want to make about Christopher Lloyd being a Klingon, because I love him as a Klingon, but there are also times where I'm just sitting there and I'm like, I want to make jokes about this because
where we're going, we don't need roads.
This is my lieutenant, Camardi McFly.
Share this with no one.
Doc,
We are going.
are you saying you made a bird of prey out of a DeLorean?
I won't remember it tomorrow.
And the guy smarts off to him. He's just like, I told you across her nose, not up it. And the guy's like, a lucky shot, sir. And he just blasts him. Bam. Okay. Well, I see how we're rolling. Which now when you find out they have about a dozen people on board, it's like, dude, you're kind of reducing your numbers there. I mean.
Yeah. The system of promotions and demotions, I don't know that I'm a fan of. For the heroic sacrifice, I am going to pick, and I actually just rewatched this. It's probably been a few months now, but I really, really enjoy this movie. In fact, I feel like in terms of the look and feel of this movie, even though it's animated, it fits right along inside my love for The Rocketeer. I'm going to go with The Iron Giant. Have you guys seen The Iron Giant?
I have not.
You're not. It is outstanding. Pat, have you seen it?
That is what I hear. You are not the first person to tell me that.
I don't think I have, John.
So not only should you see it, you should see it with your family.
I've heard, yes.
Yeah. It is. So I'm going to spoil it for the two of you gentlemen, because this is my answer for this, and neither of you have seen it. There is a scene at the end of the movie where there is a missile that has been fired, and it's going to come back on the town where the Iron Giant has been living, and it's going to kill all the townspeople. And the only chance they have is if the Iron Giant launches himself into space and catches the missile before it comes back down. And he knows that if he does that, he'll be sacrificing himself. So the little boy that he's befriended, he basically has to give kind of almost like a tearful E.T. Elliott kind of goodbye, and then launches himself and sacrifices himself to save the town. So that is going to be my pick. And yes, absolutely, you need to. Not only do you need to watch it, but I think your kids would enjoy it too.
Okay.
Your kids. Something's got to be done about your kids. You've got to show them the movie.
Your kids.
That is mine. Bo, what have you got for the heroic sacrifice?
I had the Rogue One, end of Rogue One, Destruction of Scarif.
Yes.
That was the one that sort of found its way to the top of all the ones I thought of.
Yeah.
It's a very, very touching scene on the beach.
Yeah. That one's tough. And especially right after that, when it fades to white, and then it does the kind of camera pan up so you can see from up above, you see the mushroom cloud and the explosion, and then the music gets real quiet at that point too. And then it has nothing to do with the explosion, but you go from the quiet calm of what just happened on the surface to now let's pan up from that, and it's quiet. The music is kind of sad and quiet, and now we're trying to get away from Darth Vader because he's flinging us against the walls and trying to kill us. That is, for my money, that is probably one of the best last 5 minutes of any movie.
I love Rogue One. What a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
I mean, quick smash cut. And will you guys be watching The Bad Batch?
I have not caught up yet. I need to get caught up on it. I've only seen the first season.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm behind.
I'm caught up to anything but the latest stuff. Is it premiered again?
The third and final season has premiered and concluded.
Okay.
Oh wow. Okay, so yeah, I am
I'm behind.
up to date as of the second season.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, then I will pull this back, and then when you guys are all up to date, we'll talk and all that. But
yeah,
there's a lot of great Star Wars stuff out there. Rogue One is one of them.
yeah. Do we have any runners up for the heroic sacrifices?
Yeah, I the aforementioned Stamper Armageddon scene, but then the other one I added is the end of No Time to Die, the death of James Bond.
Oh my gosh, how did I miss that one? Good call.
I did related to James Bond, but I did want to mention in terms of the largest explosion, which I should have mentioned under Biggest Boom, was Bo, I saw you commented on this too. According to the Guinness Book of World Records, the largest film stunt explosion was the destruction of Blofeld's base in Spectre.
And it is a big boom.
Yeah.
I do remember that one.
Yeah.
It was staged in Morocco using 10,000 liters of fuel and 33 kilograms of explosives. The total explosive yield was equivalent to 68 tons of TNT.
Which is big time boom.
That's big boom. Yeah.
Michael Bay is angry that Guinness has named it the biggest.
Yeah, his
He
quotes.
feels-
Yeah.
He feels that he was not eclipsed
Mm-hmm.
by that, but
I'm sure he's sitting somewhere counting his dollars and plotting his Rwenge.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's
It's Rwenge.
Mhm.
It's Omerta.
there's that.
Because if there's anything we know about Michael Bay, Michael Bay is an 11-year-old with an unlimited budget.
And a weird penchant for lens flare.
Yes. Well, yeah, I guess I was thinking more J.J. Abrams with that one.
Well,
but-
yeah, but Bay too. Like
Mhm.
Abrams is the king of lens flare.
Yeah.
But Bay's
Lens
right there
flare for
for lens flare's sake. The two of them, I tell you.
lens flare is what was that?
Oh, just lens flare for lens flare's sake. It's an effect
Well-
that just gets overused by both of those guys.
What is lens flare?
It's when you see a flash of light in the lens and it flares out at you.
You know, when you point the
Oh,
camera,
okay.
you point the camera lens or even your phone's camera towards the sun or towards, you just catch it a little bit, and it's got that
Okay.
almost multicolored kind of little circle of light, kind of lens flare type thing. J.J. Abrams is notorious for that. I mean, watch the 2009 Star Trek, and it's
Here is the every lens flare in Star Trek 2009 category.
huh?
It's over 200. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I want the two of them to get together and make a movie called Lens Flare, and Lens Flare 2, Electric Boogaloo.
I would say it's lens flare and lens flare go boom boom.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the
It's
two of them
just nutty.
can collaborate on this. I think it'll be great.
I was watching some of there's a YouTube compilation of all the explosions in Transformers. Boy,
My runner-up for heroic sacrifice was Russell's sacrifice in Independence Day.
that's a good one.
Yeah.
Up yours.
Yeah.
I'm
Hello.
back.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, because we're talking about the Independence Day ending, does the sacrifice get too comical if he's in a biplane?
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Every time I stumble on that alternate ending, I go, ooh.
Yeah.
You mean that's a thing?
Oh, yeah.
Oh dear, yes. They filmed an alternate ending where he basically does it in his crop duster.
Yep.
He's
Yeah.
got like the bombs like strapped to the plane with rope or baling wire or something. It is as anticlimactic as you think it could be.
Yeah, and especially because the whole plot thread was getting these guys up to speed to fly the then modern FA-18. Well, it still is, but I mean,
And
yeah, okay.
I can see that you could also, I'm sure, have the same person another person standing next to me saying, well, there's no way that guy could fly a Hornet, blah, blah, blah. but just the visual of the biplane does not work for me.
I feel like it was
Yeah.
that alternate ending. I feel like was Roland Emmerich sitting there and going, "There's a whole group of people that said the Ewoks are ridiculous because they'd never be able to defeat the Empire. Hold my beer."
Right. I'll
Okay.
show you ridiculous.
Yeah.
Okay, so wait a minute. Wait a minute. We're talking about a movie where the aliens show up and destroy the Earth.
Yep.
And we stage a counterattack on Independence Day
Mhm.
after finding Area 51 and a whole raft of, a hidden Air Force. And the inaccuracy being pointed out by the critics is this former fighter pilot can't fly the FA-18.
So they filmed this. They filmed this whole alternate scene,
Yeah.
and it's not great. I'm gonna see if I can find
Yeah.
the YouTube video to share with you.
Well, but hey, it's like what ends up on the cutting room floor. I can't fault them for that. Guys, what do you think? Maybe we should do this.
Yeah.
Look, no, we shouldn't do it. And maybe they got to show that to the producers and say, look, we can't do this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I give them credit for being able for having the. In the end, the way the story goes, this was the original ending. I give them credit for looking at it, going, "Oh no,
Nope.
no!
Nope.
We
Right.
cannot do this."
Have any of you seen that commercial? It's a VR commercial, and I got to get the gist of it, but it's like you see all these. Thank you, Bo, by the way.
Mhm.
But I think it's for Veterans Day or whatever. But basically, this girl invites her grandpa and all his friends over, and they're elderly, but they were all fighter pilots, jet fighter pilots, and invites them over to celebrate. And they're all kind of coming in and kind of moving as people in their 80s and all that might. And they're sitting down and they're playing kind of more slow and music with great gravitas. You're being very respectful and you're dealing with this elderly group, and they sit down. Well, thanks for having us over, and my former squadron mates and all that. Oh, and it goes something like the girl says, "Oh no, this isn't it," and then hands them the VR and has this like fighter pilot like thing programmed in, and suddenly these guys, they kind of do a flashback, and suddenly they're all young again and like in jets or whatever. I can't remember where I saw this commercial, but I found it so touching. And I think it was selling I don't know what the heck it was selling, maybe VR, whatever the heck it was pretty fun to watch. So I don't know what that had to do with anything other than just commercials and jets and people trying to go back and fly jets and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. Let's see. What category are we in now? We are on the quirky combustions. So some unusual or humorous explosions.
This
Bo,
one's fun.
What did you have for this one?
I've used this in another one of our top things. I can't remember what it was, but the toilet bomb in Lethal Weapon 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's too good. The whole scene where they jump in, they're sitting there talking, and Riggs, I don't want to die on the toilet. They dive into the bathtub together, and Murtaugh doesn't have any pants on, and everyone just looks at him funny. Like, it was just good.
Yeah. Big
fan. If I remember correctly, doesn't the toilet pop up through the roof of the house and land on the street or something? Like, yeah, man, that's gonna win a lot of my things forever.
Yeah.
But I agree. I don't want to die in the toilet either.
No. I also had a Lethal Weapon one, but that's one of my runners up. I'll share that one in a little bit.
Which, by the way, is also a really good one.
Oh, yeah. Roger, grab the cat.
Grab the cat.
I was going back and forth on this one. I was having a hard time picking which one was my favorite because I absolutely love the one that I left as a runner-up. And actually, I didn't decide until probably about 15 seconds ago which one I was going to list as being one of my favorites. But because it pokes fun at the entire category, this entire episode that we're talking about, like greatest movie explosions and movie pyrotechnics and things like that, I picked the premature pyrotechnics in Tropic Thunder.
As you should.
Because I love that scene. That's just outstanding.
Yeah. That.
What does he say? Mother Nature is pee in her pantsuit.
Oh, that movie. Oh, Lord.
Oh, man. Yeah. Because I was watching some other videos of movie explosions, And that scene looks almost exactly like the "I love the smell of napalm in the morning" scene from Apocalypse Now.
And we'll talk about it a little later, which is also the bug barbecue in Starship Troopers.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I had to go the premature pyrotechnics in Tropic
Yes. 100%.
Thunder. Yeah, because you never go full explosion.
Right.
Yeah. Pat, what have you got?
I had to go with UHF.
Yes, you did.
Yes, you
I
did.
just done. That's my explanation. I had to go with UHF. I love that movie. I love everything about it. I love the fact that my wife watched it with me and turned and said, "I can see why you like this when you were 13." And
and that just really sums up everything right there.
That whole Rambo sequence from, like, I think he looses the arrow at the guy, like standing 3 feet in front of him.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden just the thing, and then he gets into the helicopter and then they fly. And then there's just this smash up of him going, and launching the rocket. And this blows up. This blows up. This blows up, and then all of a sudden it's like, I think it was like the Eiffel Tower and like all these landmarks, and it just goes to the ridiculous level of things blowing up. And everything about that movie, everything about Weird Al, I find him hilarious. Yeah. So yeah, that's definitely, certainly 100% my choice is that one.
Yeah.
Well done.
My runners up for this one are Lethal Weapon 3, Roger Grabbed the Cat.
Good call.
And then my other one, this is the one I was going back and forth whether to do Tropic Thunder or this one, is when the Joker blows up the hospital in Dark Knight. And we have used that reference. We've used that video to reference sometimes when we get frustrated with things going on at work, and it seems like not everybody has planned for all the things, and you know, when you expect something to work right, it just doesn't work right. And so I remember we would constantly reference the scene where the Joker is walking out in the nurse costume and everything is exploding, but then it all stops and the Joker kind of looks at the detonator and like clicks the button a few times, and then after about the fifth or sixth push of the button, then all of a sudden explodes. And I think Heath Ledger, my understanding was, when it did explode, he was not expecting it to explode. So his jump was kind of a real, didn't expect it to go off right then. I absolutely love that scene, that whole scene of how, and then just kind of like the looking back at things and just shrugging, and then turning around, getting on the school bus and going from there.
Right.
Bo, I love that you listed, I think we mentioned it earlier, but I love that you listed the Batman 66, The Bomb.
It's just too funny. He's running around trying to find a place to throw this bomb.
You got the nuns, you've got the ducklings, you've got the mothers with the baby carriages, and
the fuse just keeps hanging on.
The marching band.
The marching band.
Some days you just can't get rid of a bomb.
Die Hard 2, the yippee-ki-yay after he drops that's a good laugh there.
Yeah. So back to 66 Batman for a second.
Oh, yeah.
Even though we don't see it on screen, I love the fact that the shark that was pulling his leg exploded too.
Yes. Yes.
The shark that gave us the bat shark repellent.
Some of the economy of that production was the stuff that happens off scene. It's kind of insane.
Yes. And then you listed another one. You listed Explosion of a Motor Car.
So I also, before I do that, I'll do one and then we'll go to that.
Okay, yeah.
It's the only thing speaking. We referenced the Christopher Lloyd moment earlier, and he says, "Get out of there." But there's that moment, it's the only thing speaking. And they put the communicator up to it, and you just go,
4,
you guys are done.
3, 2.
Speaking, let me hear.
Yeah.
So then, as I was looking at movie explosions, I found this clip of a silent short clip movie from 1900, apparently, about the explosion of a motor car, and it is hysterical. For the listening audience, it is a black and white silent clip, and there's a car rolling in the distance and people are walking. The car rolls up, it gets about mid-frame, and then there is a poof of smoke, and the next frame you see the car in pieces on the ground and no people are there, no bodies or anything. It is priceless in its comedy.
And I think
So.
I have seen this one before. Yeah.
I mean, and then the bodies start falling
Mm-hmm.
because they've been rocketed up by the explosion, and the bodies are falling back down to earth. And there's a police officer who's staring up at the sky, watching the body parts fall and trying to dodge them. I mean, you could almost put it to Benny Hill music if you wanted to. I mean, it's pretty good.
And I love the dummies that they're throwing from.
Yeah. Here you go.
Yeah.
And if you search for explosion of a motor car on YouTube, folks, you'll find it. It's a good minute 23 watch. I won't lie.
I mean, for 1900, it's pretty gruesome that you've got a bunch of arms and legs falling out of the sky. And
right, like I was shocked. I was like, 1900? They don't really mean that, do they?
I mean, this looks like something I tried to do when we had was it Foreign Language Week, and I was trying to do a video project, and we went and bought a dummy somewhere so that I could throw it in front of my car.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that.
I agree.
I guarantee that like little Michael Bay probably saw this when he was a little child and thought, "Give me a moment.
I can do that.
I can do that. This is what I want to do with my life.
I'll blow stuff up."
Mm-hmm. All right, classic moments. So we've talked a little bit about this, but kind of keying in on what are some of those timeless explosions that have become part of movie history. They might not be the biggest explosions, but they are ones that when you think of something blows up in a movie, like these are the ones that are this is the big time.
Sometimes they're the ones that have been duplicated because they're so iconic, they're reused.
Yeah. Bo, you mentioned yours earlier. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I just thought of an emotional one.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we want to edit it back in or just at the end. Did we miss anything? But just are you able to do that if we can I throw that in right now?
I am able, but we'll just leave it right here.
Okay, whatever works for you. I'm sorry.
No.
I can't believe I forgot this.
Go for it.
But The Godfather.
Yes.
And Michael's fiance in Sicily.
Yes.
And I want to say that explosion might be cross category because I think it was bigger than they thought when that car went off. Mm-hmm. And I think I don't know if it really threw Al Pacino back or whatever, but it was the pyrotechnics that got a little out of hand.
Yeah.
But it's just so sad. And it's part of that whole slide of him just really just trying to protect his family.
Yeah.
Having grown up fighting in a war, surrounded by violence, a violent way, family involved in crime. And you just see him slide into becoming this, kind of criminal, with a real violent streak. And the reason why, and when she blew up, and I mean, that was just such a sad sequence in the movie. So that was the one I wanted to add for that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great one. Bo, for classic moments, we've kind of already mentioned a little bit. You mentioned how the Tropic Thunder one was referencing this one.
Yeah, the napalm drop in Apocalypse Now, the famous "I love the smell of napalm in the morning" line.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
And then he goes on to talk about going up the hill and smelling the gasoline, and it smells like victory. And you'll often see the line abbreviated or paraphrased to be, "I love the smell of napalm in the morning. It smells like victory." Mm-hmm. There's a good probably quarter of a script page in there where he says a lot more. But it's a very iconic scene. You see it duplicated a lot anytime you see an airstrike coming in and you see a line of explosions. Mm-hmm. It's a very iconic image. And we've talked that it's reused in Starship Troopers. It was homaged in Tropic Thunder. And there are more. It's reused rather often. Whether it's because that's an easy way to depict it or whether because of that iconic napalm scene, you could probably debate. But
dare I mention it?
To do with it.
Well, dare I mentioned it? It was also probably referenced in Forrest Gump.
Yeah. I would think so.
Yeah.
That's all right, Pat. I think I did that to John a little later.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That's fine.
I really like that movie. A whole lot.
Are you sure?
I am sure I like this movie.
Okay, all right.
His family has told him he's sure.
Yeah,
believe me. I'm sure.
I'm sure. I have got to go with the destruction of Alderaan. Like that was when I think
classic
movie explosions, like there's very few things that I think of first rather than the Death Star blowing up Alderaan. I don't have this listed as one of my runners-up, but a very close runner-up would be the Death Star exploding over Endor. So, but
Yeah.
destruction of Alderaan.
Oh,
is
that
definitely,
that's a good one too, because you see it through the sky. Yeah.
yeah. Well, and as a young Texan, you get the explosion, and then you immediately get a yeehaw.
It's true.
So
You do.
that was exciting for me. That's when I first felt like there was representation in film for me.
That's important for a young man.
Yeah. So destruction of Alderaan. Pat, what did you have?
So I went, and again, I'm going to quote the Friendly Fire podcast. And one of my favorite movies growing up still is today is The Enemy Below. Classic movie. If you haven't seen it, go watch it tonight. I think it's on YouTube. I think you can watch the whole thing on YouTube.
Okay.
But for filming, I if my understanding is correct, basically when they filmed this movie, the Navy, U.S. Navy, gave them a surplus destroyer escort and said, "Have at it." And so they sailed that thing around and filmed on it. And the depth charge sequences in there, and growing up you see it and it's like, oh man, that's really, you get to see this as a kid. And the Friendly Fire guys pointed it out. I think however they have those things, they've got those things set to make the biggest, greatest geysers of water that you could possibly imagine when they do it. And I again want to preface this by saying I can't imagine one of the more bigger horrors of war of being depth charged or, having to do that. So I want to be careful how I phrase this whole thing. But in terms of filming, when you see those just huge geysers of water go and all that, and realize that they were doing that with charges, and it was filmed back in the 50s. So it's not like, I think it was the 50s. So it's not like CGI or any of that. I think those, to me, just a classic movie, wonderful movie, and just great effects.
Yeah. You and I have one of my runners up is one that I want to say, I looked it up real quick. I want to say is the same year as The Enemy Below.
Okay.
The Enemy Below is 57.
Okay.
Yeah. And so one of the ones I had as a runner up is, have you guys ever seen the movie Paths of Glory?
Doesn't ring a bell, but
So Paths of Glory came out in 57. It's a Stanley Kubrick movie, and it is Kirk Douglas is the main actor in it. And one scene in particular, it really makes me think of, there's a lot of movies, a lot of war movies have done this. 1917, I think in particular, where you have that one long shot of them running through the trenches. And most movies in the 50s, you had the camera was pretty steady. It was on a dolly of some kind, or the camera's not moving a whole lot. And you have this long segment where they are about to charge up the anthill, and all the soldiers are waiting on the sides of the trenches, and Kirk Douglas is walking through the trench, and the camera is it seems like it's a handheld camera, and somebody is kind of walking along in front of him and walking and watching him as he's walking through this, but explosions are going off left and right. So it's not like it's one massive explosion. It's just like a constant, and it's all kind of behind him. Like you see all the explosions behind him, and he's not paying attention to any of them. Like we're going to get to one of our categories later about, the slow motion walking away from an explosion. And I referenced the song, Cool Guys Don't Look at Explosions. I mean, this is probably one of the first instances I could think of in movies where you've got, he is a pretty cool character. Like nothing's phasing him here. He is just walking straight through that trench, and there are explosions going off all around him. He is not flinching. He is not phased by any of it. And it gets referenced in so many other movies. But that scene in particular, in fact, I think if you go to YouTube and looked up Paths of Glory charging the anthill, it'll be like a several minutes clip. I'll drop it in the chat for us here in just a little bit. But yeah, it gets referenced by, I think there's some stuff in it that is referenced in Saving Private Ryan, 1917. Yeah, just tons of other movies end up kind of going back and referencing some of the different scenes you see in this one. But that one is, and same year as the one you mentioned, Pat.
Okay.
So
yeah,
good movies coming out in 57.
Yeah.
Yeah, my only other one, not a huge explosion, but just a classic moment in movies, is Bridge on the River Kwai. You know,
Oh,
when he,
yeah.
if I got to give both of my examples have got to have Sir Alec Guinness in them. So, Bridge on the River Kwai, when he does fall on the detonator and blow up the bridge. And then, Bo, did I see Death Star was your runner up there too?
Yeah, the Death
Okay.
Star in episode 4. I mean, that's just it doesn't get more classic than that.
Yeah. All right. Our next to last category is silent but deadly. Explosions that occur in space or other environments where sound might be a bit muted, or there's a unique sound effect that accompanies the explosion. Pat, I'm not shocked that you and I had the exact same pick.
Yeah, it's hard to. I was thinking of something for diversity's sake, but variety's sake. But no, it's just cool.
It's an outstanding scene, and it's one of my favorite
Yeah.
sound effects in any movie. Yeah.
Yes.
We are speaking specifically of the seismic charges that get dropped from Jango Fett's ship when Obi-Wan is chasing him. I think they're over Geonosis at that point. And he's chased him there.
Yes.
He's dropping the seismic charges in the kind of the asteroid field that they're flying through, and you have the explosion. The explosion is completely silent until the shockwave starts to come out, and then you have that really cool kind of reverb sound that
Yeah.
Bo, I noticed you also went to the wars for this one.
I did. The Last Jedi hyperspace ramming trick was
Ramming
completely
speed.
silent. Say what you will about the way they handled that and the way they handled that movie, but
Yeah.
that scene is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
When it rips through all those ships. And
Yeah, that one's awesome. What about Bo? I think you might have been the only one that had a runner-up on this one.
I did. I actually struggled with which of these, but I felt the Star Wars theme felt good.
Sure, yeah.
But in Gravity, the ISS rips apart
Mm-hmm.
and it's silent except for her breathing,
Okay.
essentially. And and you know, the old adage is, in space, no one can hear you scream. That's pretty true. Like I think if you were to witness something like that, it would be so disconcerting not to hear the things breaking apart.
Right, yeah.
Like it would just be so weird. And so that one sort of grabbed my attention.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. We have reached our final category. Our final category is the slow-mo blow. Best example of an explosion where someone is walking, running, leaping away from the blast in slow motion. Bo, what have you got?
I had a few here, but I think I settled on the boat in Die Hard 3, which we already mentioned as a big explosion. But you've got Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis diving off the boat as it's blowing up behind them. And then they land in the water.
Yeah. Excellent.
Good call.
I have and I was trying to, I wanted to find a way for this to fit into one of the categories, so I had to rewatch this a couple of times, be like, please tell me that there is a moment where there's like something happening in slow motion so I can include this. I'm going to argue that in this scene, the camera slows down just a bit when the little escape plane is flying away, rescuing them from the Zeppelins. It seems like it's going a little slower than it should. So I'm going to say this fits within, and I don't know, it's my show anyway, so I can do whatever I want.
Not a democracy.
No. Mine is going to be the Zeppelin explosion at the end of The Rocketeer. And part of that,
which is, I believe you have commented, it has been reused in theme.
I'm going to say yes, because as that Zeppelin is exploding, it starts to explode from the front to the back, and they're all running away, and that big scary guy, Lothar, I think was his name, is running along with him, but he's also tethered to the Zeppelin, so he gets to a point where he gets to the end of his tether, the end of his rope literally, and gets jerked back and realizes that he cannot get away from this explosion. As they are running, and then a little escape plane comes with... running. Peavy and Howard Hughes are there. They drop the ladder, and Cliff and Jenny grab on, and they fly away, and the whole thing blows up. But as Lothar gets stuck there, and this whole thing is starting to explode and getting closer and closer to him, and he turns around and does his whole, like, kind of a thing as the explosions are getting closer and closer, it made me think of, wait a minute, I've also seen this before. It's the scene where everything's exploding at the end of Star Trek Insurrection, and Picard is standing across the thing from Salieri, and they're like staring each other down, and the Enterprise comes swooping in, and just as it gets close enough to beam him up, then Salieri has his moment of kind of almost covers his face with his hands and screams, and I'm like, that almost looks exactly like the Rocketeer.
You mean Jean-Luc Picard, action hero?
Yes, action.
Is
Picard.
what that movie should be called.
Action jacket Picard. Yes.
Action Lothario Picard.
Yes.
Actually,
Jean-Luc with the kung fu grip. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that movie was something else, man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Talk about having to make a leap from drama to action when you go from TV to movies.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that movie has so much wrong with it.
You broke your little ships, and then you kicked the crap out of everybody too.
Yeah, we're gonna have fun with that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Switching to manual.
Oh.
What do we got? In a couple of years, we got First Contact, which is one of the last Star Trek movies I'm going to be okay with for a while.
That will be wonderful.
Yeah.
To discuss that.
Yeah.
When we break our little ships and we find our white whale.
Yeah. Then we got Insurrection and Nemesis over there.
Yeah.
That's all right.
We can talk about 2009, which is fine.
Yeah, and we'll get there.
But then Into Darkness and yeah.
I like the 2009 one. I'm okay with that one.
Yeah, 2009 wasn't bad. Just Into Darkness and Beyond are challenging.
Yeah.
I wanted Into Darkness to be good because it's Cumberbatch.
Mm-hmm.
It should have been better.
I have a lot of opinions on that movie.
Yes, I have opinions on that matter. Sorry, didn't mean to turn this into the 30-something Star Trek podcast.
No, that's okay. It pretty constantly does.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick, what is yours? What is your slow-mo bow? Slow-mo bow? Bo, are you running in slow-mo?
Slow-mo bow.
Always.
Yeah,
Always.
I have one speed, and it is slow.
We have seen his speed, and it is slow.
Yes.
I could only think of one thing when it came to this, and that is Vin Diesel and like Triple X and the outstanding bike sequences in there. And when he busts out of the drug dealer's like village, and I mean, to try and describe how he ended up there, we got there in the first place. But when he takes off on the dirt bike and he rides up the roof of the barn and jumps over the fence, and the entire in back of him is obscured with explosion in slow motion, and he's doing this flying leap on this dirt bike. That is the coolest thing ever. I cannot watch it once. I have to watch it at least a dozen times and just rewind, go, rewind, go, rewind. It's so classically awesome. It just, I love it.
Yeah.
Love everything about it.
Before we get to any of our runners up, I did promise that I was going to play a little bit of that song, "Cool Guys Don't Look at Explosions," and it fits with this category, the slow-mo blow. So here's a little bit of the Andy Samberg song, "Cool Guys Don't Look at Explosions," from the 2009 MTV Movie Awards.
Seems like these days the whole world's on fire. Things keep blowing the hell up. And while all those rubberneckers and looky-loos stand slack-jawed staring, the real men have the nuts to walk away. Yeah. Cool guys don't look at explosions. They blow things up and then walk away. Who's got time to watch an explosion? There's cool guy errands that they have to walk to. Keep walking, keep shining. Don't look back, keep on walking. Keep strutting. Slow motion, the more you ignore it, the cooler you look. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Neil Diamond.
Where are we? Cool guys don't look at explosions. They stride forward in their diamond-covered boots. They wear jumpsuits of glittery rhinestones and walk away in slow motion.
Walking.
So anyway, cool guys don't look at explosions. That's why we have the entire category of the slow-mo blow, because you blow stuff up and you walk away.
We gotta do some honorable mentions, which are talking about Iron Man.
Oh,
the original Iron Man.
Yeah.
And that's the cool guy walking away when he shoots him with the
little missiles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. That's really good.
There's a ton of those.
There's
There's
a dirty.
Desperado.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Dirty Harry Callahan. When the
Mm.
guy when the guy drives off with the car and he just pulls out the detonator,
Mm-hmm.
kablamo.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was good. And then I think there was some guy up in a tower or something with a gun or whatever and was shooting down at him, and Harry takes him out with a tank rocket or something.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's not forget Jack Flack. We just talked about him maybe a few weeks ago for our Patreon.
That was on
episode.
my honorable mention.
Yep. Jack Flack comes walking out of the flames.
Does.
Mhm.
What else we got? What other honorable mentions we've got for the slow-mo walk out of the flames?
I mentioned the Another Stakeout opening again because they're all slow-mo diving into the pools.
Oh, yeah.
Armageddon again, the Russian space station scene. The shuttles are pulling away as the thing is exploding. Mostly those were, when looking at something else, I found them, so they got added to that category.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. I think that's going to do it, gents. I think we have definitively covered. There are no other explosions that we could have possibly listed. We've done it. Like, we've definitively and comprehensively covered every possible great movie explosion that's ever existed.
What a great idea. What a great episode. This was fun.
Other than, I will say, and I almost could put it in the humorous category because I do get a little chuckle every time I see it. In the Twin Towers, when you've got one of the Urukai or orcs who is carrying the Olympic torch to the wall at Helm's Deep. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I chuckle in my head.
motion.
I chuckle in my head because every time I see that scene, I want the Olympic music, the John Williams Olympic fanfare, to be playing in the background while he's making that run.
Yes.
Well, it's slow motion, but then at the very end, he like throws himself forward.
Right. It's like a leap for the finish line kind of a deal.
Yeah, pushing over the limit there. Pushing over it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. That's going to do it for this one, guys. I was excited to do this episode with you. This was a lot of fun. Greatest movie
I'm
explosions
excited
of all
to be
time.
a part of it.
I was as well. I love this plan. So I think this may be one of our best. The 531st episode may be one of our best epiversaries ever.
I
agree.
really like it.
I think from now on we just celebrate random numbers as opposed to actual big
I-
numbers.
Yes.
Because until we get to 1,000, pretty much everything else is kind of meaningless at this point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. We're coming for you, Nerdist Podcast.
Mm.
We're going to get there. All right. Yeah. Well, if you have been joining us for the rest of this month, you'll know that we've done Speed, we've done Blown Away. This week was Greatest Movie Explosions of All Time. Next week is True Lies. And then if you're a Patreon co-executive producer over there, then our Patreon episode this month was Cloak and Dagger, which we just referenced just a moment ago. And our Patreon short this month was a quick little 10, 15-minute review of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the new one that has come out this year. So we've got some good stuff over there over on the Patreon. But yes, this was a lot of fun to do this one. It's a little bit of a departure from covering a specific movie, but just the fun was in getting to go back and try to find movie clips of fun movie explosions, and then the just absolute terror of having to narrow it down to like one.
Well, and it's fun to hear where everybody's coming from with it. You know?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Like what everyone's emotion was and what everyone's, well, yeah, like I said, what everyone's, when we say emotion, where are you going with that? Oh, well, you're going with dramatic and sad. I'm going with awesome. It's just cool. It's just fun. I mean, I like talking movies, but it's fun doing our list episodes too.
Oh yeah. All right.
Which are talking movies, but I mean, it's fun talking about the one movie a week, but
sure.
That's what I was trying.
Yeah. All right, gents. Thank you so much for being here with me. Pat, Bo, it is always a pleasure.
John, it's awesome.
John.
Thank you so much for making it happen.
All right. Everybody, be excellent to each other. Go watch some good movies. Go watch some stuff blow up on the movie screen. Go watch some stuff blow up, and we'll see you back here next time.
Down low. low, it's time to show. Lights, camera, you know what we mean. Behold the magic of the silver screen. Some movies rock